Have you ever noticed that once you hit your 70s, something subtle but powerful begins to shift? Maybe you've asked yourself why certain friendships no longer feel the way they used to. Or perhaps you've realized you're craving more calm, more time with your own thoughts, and fewer social obligations that used to dominate your calendar. If you felt this way, you're not alone. In fact, I'm here to tell you something that might surprise you. You don't actually need a big circle of friends once you've reached 70. At least not in the way you might think. Stay with me here, because by the end of this video, you might discover a whole new perspective on friendship, solitude, and the incredible freedom that can come when you decide you simply don't need to maintain the same kind of social life you used to. I'm going to walk you through 6 key reasons that often lead people in their 70s, 80s, and beyond to find more contentment in a smaller circle, or even in near solitude, than they ever experienced before. But don't misunderstand, this isn't about cutting yourself off from the world. It's about realizing that your priorities, your energy, and your sense of fulfillment can shift dramatically once you let go of certain social expectations. So, let's dive in. Get comfortable, maybe settle into your favorite chair, and prepare to hear some truths that just might resonate deeply with where you are in life right now. Reason number 1, you're no longer looking for anyone's validation. When we're young, teens, 20s, 30s, even 40s, so much of our social energy goes into trying to fit in. We join clubs, attend every gathering, and keep up with multiple circles of acquaintances. Why? Because in many ways, we're seeking validation. We want to be liked, respected, appreciated, seen. Perhaps we felt we needed to prove ourselves in our careers or personal lives, or we feared that if we lost certain connections, our self-worth would take a hit. But guess what happens when you get older? You finally reach a point where you realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You've likely had your share of successes, maybe raised a family, contributed to your profession, or pursued personal passions. You've been through enough trials and triumphs to know your own capabilities and worth. In that moment, when you finally realize how little you need someone else's stamp of approval, can be incredibly liberating. Consider Frank, a retired accountant in his early 70s. For decades, he maintained friendships built around professional networking. The moment he retired, many of those so-called friendships faded into memory. At first, he panicked, thinking, "What did I do wrong?" But then he realized he never truly got enjoyment from those relationships in the first place. They were built on convenience. As soon as work was out of the picture, everyone went their separate ways. Now Frank finds tremendous peace in focusing on his garden, his grandchildren, and maybe a handful of friends who truly matter. There's no more feeling like he has to impress anyone at a company dinner or force conversations with people he barely knows. He's content to be exactly who he is, and that sense of self-acceptance is something that often comes only in our later years. If you can relate, let me know by sticking with me here, because there's more. This idea of not needing validation is just the first piece of a broader transformation that can happen when you let go of unnecessary social pressures. Reason number 2, peace and quiet become more important than constant connection. Have you ever found yourself relishing the silence? Maybe you used to love big family reunions every single weekend, or you went out of your way to attend large social events. But now the idea of back-to-back gatherings leaves you feeling tired before you've even left home. That's normal. As we get older, our appreciation for peaceful moments tends to overshadow our desire to be in the thick of social action. It's not that you've become antisocial, far from it, but your emotional energy is a finite resource, and you may choose to spend it in ways that truly nurture your soul. Think about your typical week. Perhaps in your 40s or 50s, you would rush around to see people, make phone calls, and answer texts. But now you might prefer to wake up early and enjoy a quiet cup of coffee by the window, watching birds in the yard. That small scene can feel infinitely more fulfilling than an hour of strained small talk at a noisy party. Take Irene, for example, who spent her entire adult life in the heart of city life, organizing potlucks and get-togethers. She thrived on energy and chatter. Then in her 70s, something changed. She found herself drained by the same social routines she once adored. Now she might drive out to a nearby lake just to watch the sunset in silence. It's a different kind of fulfillment, she says, one where I feel I'm truly recharging. This transition is important to acknowledge. If you're craving solitude or smaller, more meaningful interactions, that doesn't make you lonely. It means you're prioritizing the quality of your time over the quantity of people you spend it with. Reason number 3, fewer friends means fewer disappointments. Let's face it, life teaches us a thing or two about human nature. By the time you've racked up 70 years of experiences, you've likely encountered friendships that turned sour or at least fizzled out in hurtful ways. Perhaps there were trust issues, betrayals, or simple neglect from people you once held dear. The more relationships you have, the more potential heartbreaks or letdowns you risk. But as we age, we can opt out of this cycle. Maintaining fewer connections doesn't mean you're shutting everyone out. It simply means you're refining your circle to include only the people who genuinely enrich your life. With fewer moving parts, there's less chance that someone will drop the ball or fail you when you need them most. In many cases, you learn to rely more on yourself, and you discover that's often more reliable than waiting for others to come through. Imagine you're planning a quiet weekend. In your younger years, you might have invited 10 different friends over, hoping for a lively barbecue. But inevitably, a few would cancel last minute, or arguments might break out, leaving you feeling frustrated. Now you might just invite your best friend, or a couple of family members, or even enjoy the day alone. Fewer people can mean fewer disappointments. The time you spend socializing is more intentional and less riddled with unpredictable drama. I like to think of it as decluttering your social life. Just like when you finally decide to clear out the attic full of boxes you never use, you might reach a point where you decide your circle of friends needs a similar sweep. By preserving only the relationships that bring real value and warmth, you end up with a healthier, more nurturing social environment. Reason number 4, time becomes your most precious asset. One of the most significant transformations that happens as we get older is we become keenly aware of our time. It's no longer abstract, we sense its limits, and that realization can shift the way we choose to invest every hour of every day. When you're younger, you might agree to gatherings or phone calls purely out of habit or obligation. I really don't want to miss Linda's party, you'd say, even if you found it exhausting. You might have worried about hurting someone's feelings or missing an opportunity. But when you're over 70, your mentality often changes to something like, is this how I truly want to spend my time? It sounds simple, but it's a question that can have a profound impact on your daily choices. If an invitation or activity doesn't align with what you find meaningful, you're more inclined to say, no, thank you. And that refusal doesn't come from selfishness or bitterness. It comes from a desire to honor the limited time you have left in the most fulfilling way possible. Let's consider Bob, an avid fisherman who spent most of his adult life juggling a dozen social commitments a week. Meetings, volunteer groups, neighborhood events, you name it. After turning 75, he realized he wasn't enjoying most of these activities. They felt more like obligations than passions. So he started to politely decline. His newfound free time went into early morning fishing trips, afternoons perfecting new lures, and evenings reading books he never got around to. He discovered he was happier, healthier, and more at peace because each day was spent in ways that truly resonated with him. Maybe you can relate. Have you ever felt a surge of relief after canceling plans you weren't really enthusiastic about? That's your inner compass telling you it's okay to invest your time in ways that nourish your spirit. At this stage, you earn the right to be selective. You've worked your entire life and navigated countless social obligations. Now is your chance to treat your minutes and hours like the treasures they are. Reason number 5, you become your own best companion. There's a significant difference between being alone and feeling lonely. In our 70s and beyond, many of us start to figure this out on a deeper level than ever before. The shift happens when you realize that your richest, most profound sense of companionship might just come from within yourself. That might sound counterintuitive, especially if you grew up with the belief that we all need a bustling social circle to be happy. But think about the relief that comes when you can wake up in the morning and do exactly what you want, without having to coordinate with anyone else's schedule or preferences. Think about the calm of knowing that if you have a quiet day with 0 visitors or phone calls, you're still perfectly content. It's often in these quieter years that people rediscover hobbies they once loved but had to put aside. Maybe you used to paint when you were younger, but between raising children and working a demanding job, your art supplies collected dust. Now, with fewer social commitments, you can return to that creative outlet. And in that peaceful process of painting or knitting or reading or gardening, You discover a profound sense of fulfillment that no friend or acquaintance could replicate for you. This self-companionship is not about rejecting others. It's about embracing the fact that you are perfectly whole and capable of generating your own joy. When the pressure of maintaining superficial friendships eases up, you often find a deeper connection with yourself, your memories, your talents, your innermost thoughts. And that is an incredibly empowering realization. Reason number 6, letting go creates space for what you truly want. As you let go of unnecessary friendships, those that no longer enrich your life, you open up a space for new experiences and deeper fulfillment. Sometimes that space might be filled by a new friendship that's more genuine and supportive than any you've had before. Other times that space might remain yours alone for self-exploration, travel, or simply enjoying the quiet rhythms of your day. Often letting go is misunderstood. It's not about abruptly cutting ties with everyone who has ever been in your life. It's about recognizing which relationships are positive and life-affirming, and which ones are draining or based on outdated dynamics. It's giving yourself permission to set healthy boundaries, something that can be particularly liberating if you spent decades putting others' needs first. Picture you decide to downsize your social obligations, much like downsizing your living space. Rather than cluttering your calendar with lunch dates and phone calls that leave you feeling hollow, you choose to follow your heart's genuine desires. You focus on the relationships that truly make you smile and feel supported. Suddenly, you have the time and emotional bandwidth to visit the places you always dreamed of, whether that's a local museum you've never explored or a country you've always been curious about. Another bonus, when you do reconnect with old friends or distant family, you can be fully present and genuinely happy to see them, instead of feeling pressured or overwhelmed. The irony is that by letting go of constant social maintenance, you might find yourself savoring the connections that remain much more deeply, staying engaged without the stress. Now, just because you choose fewer friendships or more solitude doesn't mean you have to cut yourself off from the world. Some older adults worry, if I pull back, I'll become invisible. But there's a huge difference between becoming invisible and becoming more intentional. You can still engage with local communities, volunteer groups, spiritual gatherings, or online forums that spark your interest, if you feel drawn to them. The key is to avoid the trap of doing things just because you're afraid of being lonely or because you feel obligated. When you do connect with people, you can do so wholeheartedly with authenticity and genuine interest. This is how you build or maintain the kinds of relationships that truly enhance your later years. Imagine that you love working with your hands, wood carving or quilting, for instance. Instead of attending random events out of a sense of duty, you could occasionally take part in a specialized workshop where you meet people who share your passion. The connections that form in such environments often have a deeper resonance than the casual friendships we keep out of habit. Embracing technology on your own terms. Another point that might come to mind is the role of technology. In today's world, there's sometimes pressure on seniors to stay connected through every possible digital channel. Video calls, social media, messaging apps, and more. But you don't have to jump on every tech bandwagon to keep in touch. If you enjoy video chatting with a grandchild who lives far away, do so. If you appreciate the convenience of a smartphone for sharing quick updates, great. But never feel guilty if you prefer not to adopt every new digital platform. Technology can be a wonderful tool when it serves your comfort and needs. If it starts to feel like another chore or stress, you have the right to decline. Sometimes the best connections come from a simple phone call or a letter in the mail, rather than a barrage of notifications on half a dozen apps. You're not too old to rediscover yourself. One of the misconceptions that hold people back in their 70s and beyond is the belief that it's too late for something, be it a new activity, a passion, or a mindset shift. That couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, your 70s, 80s, or 90s can be prime time to embrace a renewed sense of purpose. When you shed friendships that no longer resonate, you free up mental and emotional space to try new things. Have you always wanted to learn a musical instrument? Why not start now? Many senior centers or community classes cater specifically to older adults who want to pick up fresh skills. Are you curious about writing your memoir or diving into family history research? This might be the perfect opportunity to do exactly that, without the weight of social obligations you don't truly enjoy. Remember, your best years can still be ahead if you view this stage of life as a chance to refine your day-to-day existence. You don't need everyone else's approval or companionship to find meaning. Sometimes the greatest joy lies in discovering or rediscovering passions that fell by the wayside in your earlier, busier years. A word on family. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds well and good, but what about family? That's a crucial point. Family often holds a different place in our hearts than friends, and maintaining close relationships with children, grandchildren, or siblings can be a priority for many. However, even within family dynamics, boundaries are healthy. Some families stay tightly knit while others drift apart over the years due to distance, differing lifestyles, or conflicts. Choosing solitude or fewer social ties doesn't have to mean cutting off your family. It simply means you get to decide how and when you engage with them. If family visits are a joy, keep them. If certain relatives bring constant drama or drain your energy, you can limit how often or in what capacity you see them. It's about acknowledging your needs and not feeling obligated to sacrifice your own peace out of fear or guilt. The hidden benefit: more energy and health. Something people don't always realize is that reducing stressful or meaningless social interactions can actually improve your physical and mental health. Chronic stress, like the kind that arises from too many social obligations or toxic relationships, can contribute to issues like high blood pressure, anxiety, and sleep problems. When you protect your emotional energy by limiting unwanted social demands, you often find you have more vitality for the things that truly matter. You might sleep better, feel calmer, and even have fewer aches and pains. It's amazing how interconnected our social well-being is with our physical health, especially as we age. Call to action: share your thoughts and experiences. If anything in this video resonates with you, perhaps a moment where you realize you didn't need the circle of friends you once thought you did, consider sharing your story in the comments. By doing so, you're helping others who may be experiencing something similar realize they're not alone. Let's support each other. If you've found peace in solitude, let us know how you transitioned away from certain friendships. If you have a select group of friends who bring you real joy, share how you maintain that. Your insights could help someone else navigate their own social landscape as they move into or through their 70s. Closing thoughts. So, is it true that you absolutely don't need friends after 70? The short answer might be yes, but only if those friendships no longer bring you genuine happiness. The longer answer is that there's nothing wrong with having close connections in your later years. But those connections should be meaningful, reciprocal, and supportive, rather than draining or based on social conditioning. Imagine freeing yourself from the guilt or sense of obligation that's often tied to maintaining an endless list of friends and acquaintances. Picture how much easier it would be to wake up knowing that your day belongs to you, your pace, your passions, your peace. That feeling of liberation is possible, and it doesn't make you a hermit or a recluse. It simply means you're choosing quality over quantity at a stage in life when you've absolutely earned the right to do so. If you've stuck with me this far, I appreciate you taking the time. I hope these ideas inspire you to approach your social life, or lack thereof, in a new light. Whether you decide to keep just one close friend, a small circle of loved ones, or embrace a peaceful solitude, the choice is entirely yours. After decades of living, learning, and growing, you deserve to chart your own path. Stay true to yourself. Remember the power of your own companionship, and never feel guilty for wanting a simpler life. Because after all, life is at its best when it truly reflects who you are, not who others want you to be. Thank you for watching. If this video offered you any insights or encouragement, be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming content. And if you have a moment, let me know in the comments. How do you feel about the idea that you might not need the friendships you once had? Do you find it liberating, bittersweet, or both? I'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, take care. And here's to living life on your own terms, each and every day.